Hey everyone, it's Rob Stanley with the FeedbackWhiz podcast. And today we want to talk about something a little bit different. So I've been getting a lot of messages from people asking about wanting to sell their Amazon business. So I called my buddy Ken Kubec. He's VP of Acquisitions at Thrasio. And he basically, Thrasio is a company that basically acquires or purchases Amazon businesses. So I wanted to get Ken on and talk a little bit about that because we're getting a lot of people that are kind of interested in that. So Ken, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rob. Always good to connect.
Yeah. So I've actually known Ken about a year now. We met at IRC like a year ago, and we've done a few things together. And I actually got to kind of learn about Thrasio and what they do. And I think the last time we talked, or just not too long ago, you were telling me you guys have acquired 45 plus brands just in the last year?
Yeah, probably the last 16 months in earnest. The company was started in the summer of 2018, maybe April, May. We were incorporated of 18. Did a few acquisitions in the later half of 2018, and then really stepped on the accelerator in 2019. And yeah, we're now up to over 45 companies and brands under our portfolio management.
Wow. Yeah. So let's jump right into it. I mean, let's face it, right now, I mean, we're in a little bit different times with the virus going on, but even prior to that, it was kind of difficult for people to kind of get to the top of Amazon. Now, let's kind of talk a little bit about that. And then let's also talk about, I mean, you're not always necessarily looking for the top company out there, right?
Right. Yeah. No, exactly. So, our investment thesis is that it's getting, more difficult to rank on Amazon and gather the reviews, which are clearly the social proof on the marketplace. So, our thesis is basically, instead of launching hundreds of thousands of products, why don't we go out and try and acquire the top leading products in their respective categories, so that they've already done a lot of the heavy lifting and gotten the hard yards. A lot of these, launched in 2014, 2015. Where Amazon's terms of services around reviews, as you guys know at FeedbackWhiz, right? They were a lot more lax. It was a lot easier to scale that review quantity and quality quickly and get to the top spot in your categories. And once you're there, the game becomes different because you're constantly, when you're getting there, you're playing offense and you're attacking. And then when you get to the top, you have to play offense and defense and really strategize and have the capability to do that. And it's oftentimes a different skill set required. And so, because then you have the people coming after you when you used to be the one chasing, now you're getting chased. So we kind of, we look across all categories. We don't specialize in, sports and outdoors or home or pets or anything like that. We are really just looking for those leaders that have the kind of respective beachfront real estate within Amazon's ecosystem.
Yeah, but you guys are also looking for companies that maybe have, they've grown quite a bit. They have a lot of potential still left in them, and maybe somebody just needs to get out, or they got something else going on, or maybe there was a family issue or something, and you guys see potential there. So you're not always just looking for the top ones, right?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, there has to be they have to be within the top, I would say 5-7-ish of their category. An original thesis was, let's buy the players that are on, page 2 and try and get them to page 1. But as I just alluded to, it's getting harder to do that. So, as long as they're within the top 10 of their category and market, depending on how big the market is, we'll make that assessment on whether, it makes sense to acquire somebody that's number 6 in a huge market. It probably does make sense, right? But in a smaller niche market, maybe there's only room for really 3 players that have 70% of the market share. So it's really kind of end market dependent on, where we emphasize where the products are ranked, et cetera. But yeah, we've not every business we bought has been the top, but the majority of them are in that range that I alluded to.
Yeah, you're looking for ones that you guys can still grow or keep maintaining and just bring money in on. But I mean, let's touch a little bit on reviews, ratings, and rank, and how important are those to you guys? And what are you kind of maybe looking for in those? Is there a certain amount of reviews you're looking for or ratings? What's kind of the criteria?
Yeah. So, I call that our R cubed. And that's really what we hone in on when we're looking at assessing the business. So in terms of reviews, it really is, do they have that social proof in terms of quantity? And then, we want to buy highest quality products out there. And that's something that we really focus on even post-acquisition, is improving the product quality. We want to develop deliver the best products at great value to consumers. That's how you win. That's how you win on the Amazon marketplace and other marketplaces. So we focus on the review quantity. The product rating is also something that is a testament to the product quality of what you're delivering. We tend to look at least for 4.5 stars on the product, so over a 4.3 rating and above. And we'll look at it. A lot of products hover in that 4.3 range, and we've seen 15, 20, 25% reduction in revenues when you lose that half star from a 4.5 to a 4. So it's something that during diligence and when we're assessing the business, we look at what is the probability of that potentially happening, et cetera. And then rank. Amazon is an SEO engine, and particularly organic, and then also now it's becoming more and more pay to play on the advertising side. So we really look and dive into how big is the keyword universe, where are the products ranking, where are their opportunities, where are the competitors ranking. Entrepreneurs are just fascinating people that I get to deal with every day. But the reality is, oftentimes, just as I have and you do, we have deficiencies and gaps in skill sets and things like that. And that's kind of one of the things that we really bring to the table as an acquirer, is we have, industry expertise across supply chain, finance, operations, marketing and advertising, creative and content, and product launch. So we've kind of looked at what does it take to build and accelerate growth within a successful Amazon business, and our whole company is geared around that. So kind of built this machine that every acquisition goes through an onboarding migration process that has multiple hundreds of SOPs associated with that, and then a growth playbook on the back end once the acquisition is closed. And on average, we've grown profitability 45 to 65% across the whole portfolio post acquisition. Nice. So we had a lot of value to the businesses that we're acquiring, both on and off of Amazon.
Yeah, that's great. And wow, that's great growth, by the way. Yeah. So one of the things I know that people are probably thinking, because I'm thinking it also, is there a certain time frame I need to have run my business on Amazon? Is it a year? Is it 3 years? Or does it really matter as long as some of the numbers fall into place?
Yeah. So, seasoning is good. Just like steaks or, something to throw on the grill. But we at least want to see trailing, 12 months. So all of our acquisitions are priced based off of a trailing 12-month profit number. And so that's kind of table stakes, I think, for any acquisition, is my guess, right? I mean, particularly if you're seeking SBA loan buyers, they want longer history, operating history, like that. But our minimum is 12 months. And then, if you don't have a P&L and things like that, we can build that for you. We have all those capabilities in house. So that's probably the minimum. Yeah. 12 months.
Here's a little different question. How many times have you run into somebody who's actually built an Amazon business specifically to sell?
It's increasingly. Yeah. So I do a lot of calls now with people that are specifically in their, they might be 6 months in and they reach out and say, hey, I want to sell to you guys in a year and a half or 2 years. What should I be doing today? And I think that's changed a lot, just the psyche of the Amazon seller, right? I think early on it was, hey, I got this great product idea, and you were first to market, and that was the determining factor in success, was just being early in the marketplace to gather those reviews. But what we're seeing now is that people are treating this as a legitimate business, right? Putting their SOPs in place, hiring a team, having a methodical product launch system that's, replicable and successful. So yeah, it's increasingly becoming more and more, people have a tighter package when they come to us outside of a broker that's, done that for them. They have, I'm seeing pitch decks now from Amazon sellers that they're putting together on their own,
Wow.
with models and everything. Yeah, it's great to see. And those are the businesses we love to look at because, while they're probably more optimized, I think they're also set up for more future success.
Yeah, and for people who are thinking about selling to you guys, either now or let's say, in the next year or two, you were mentioning SOPs. How important is SOPs, documentation? What kind of things are you looking for, or should they maybe be working on if they do plan to sell to you guys in the future?
Yeah, look, I think that SOPs in general are just great business hygiene if you're an Amazon seller, because things are constantly changing on the marketplace, and if you're not, it forces having an SOP. I think forces you to stay on top of all the changes and make sure that they're up to date and you're operating at the most efficient level, particularly if you have employees or you're using virtual assistants or what have you. I think everybody wants the 5-hour work week or, but, I always laugh when I see that, like, oh, they spend 5 hours a week. And it's like, yeah, but you're not capturing the 50 hours they were putting in the first 2 years to build the business to this level. And because they have SOPs, they can put 5 hours in. Right. So it's important to us. I mean, we have our own. So I think, Thrasio as its own, acquisition entity and operator, we like to see it, but it's not like we, take those and implement them or just keep them running for that brand. We often port in our own. But I do know that, for a buyer that doesn't have Amazon experience, they're integral. So, whether it's us or somebody else, I think having them in place is tantamount to creating future value.
Yeah. So a lot of people probably, I know this from experience when I had my own business and I sold it. Of course, mine was more online, not necessarily a Amazon business, even though I did have one of those too. And, people kind of take it personal, like it's their baby, they built it. And I'm sure you've seen that scenario where people come in and they're like, I want to sell this to you, but what are you guys going to do with it? Are you going to tear it apart? Are you going to, obviously you guys' goal is to keep it going and make money, but I'm sure that you get people in there that kind of taking it personal. And how do you usually deal or kind of handle people like that, they're kind of white gloves on their company and they're a little scared to kind of give it to somebody else, their baby?
Yeah. Yeah. We're working internally to, show a lot of the wins that we've had to give people, comfort. And, we're going to be in this marketplace for the next few years, acquiring Amazon FBA sellers. So, we want to be seen as the gold standard in the industry. We want to have that badge of honor that, hey, I sold to Thrasio. So, we really worked with the brands. We work with the owners post, as involved as they want to be. Some of them stay on as consultants. Some of them, the majority of them have another brand they've launched or another, idea and business venture they want to get into, and they just want to diversify their assets and take some chips off the table. But I think my greatest joy is when, our creative team totally redoes creative for a brand and then sharing that back to the owner and, seeing their reactions and how excited they are of, and then they're like, oh man, I knew I could, I knew this brand had it in it to have that representation. And it's so awesome to see, the ideas that I had come into life, whether it be, a sports endorsement or, an athlete endorsing their product or licensing deals or, other things that we're working on, or just adding, refreshing the packaging. Right. I always tell people the biggest advice that I give is professional photography and videos.
Oh yeah.
It's such, it's maybe it costs you $10,000 to get 7 images and a video done. And the ROI is immense. And some people, I mean, you'd be surprised at how many businesses that are doing, 3, 4, 5 million in revenue, and their products they're all Photoshop pictures. It's like, an image of someone's leg, and it's like, the leg is 10 feet long, and it's just like, and their conversion rate's at 7%. And if they actually invested $10,000, they could probably, increase sales by 50% just by having good photography, because they have everything else on the listing, but and obviously higher price products, it's even more important if someone's browsing and actually doing research.
I mean,
so it's stuff like that that we do.
I was going to say, you got to look at, when you're browsing and looking to buy stuff, I'm looking at the photos, I'm looking at the quality of it. I want to see good quality pictures, how it's going to, depending on the item, if it's a sports item, is there a person using it? How are they using it? Is there certain things that connect together? Is there features that are on it that I'm looking for? So that's great. So I was thinking of something. Have you had anybody where you've bought two businesses from the same person, at different time frames?
Not yet, but I anticipate over probably the next. I would anticipate maybe by the end of the year, just because we've only been doing it for 18 months. So to get, somebody, but there are people that we've bought a business from, and they're like, all right, well, I have another one I'm growing, or I'll be back to you in 6 months and hopefully you'll buy this one. I mean, I've been surprised at how many people have multiple brands at scale, which is pretty cool. So we've had a few that we've purchased, and they have, 1 or 2 other brands, and they basically wanted the money to invest and really grow those, and hopefully double dip on with 2 or 3 exits down the road. So I would anticipate, with over the next 6 to 12 months that will be the case. It'll be a cool story.
Well, I'll make sure next time we have you on, I'll ask that question again and see if it happened.
Yeah.
So, and then so the big question, and everybody asks this, and I know you probably get asked this on every single transaction. Everybody wants to know, what is their business worth? And I'm sure you get asked that question. How do you handle that?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of variables that go into it, but the short answer is, Amazon businesses kind of range anywhere from, and this is again, all in. So when you factor in all the payments that an owner can get, they range anywhere from kind of like 2 to 4 times trailing 12 months profit or EBITDA. The upfront portion is obviously in that range or lower, kind of the 1.7 to 2.5-ish times for the upfront portion, like at close. And then there's subsequent payments that get owners to that kind of 3 to 4, 4.5 earn out over time. But it's really just it's dependent. I mean, value is in the eye of the beholder. So there's no set formula, right? I mean, we've looked at businesses that we haven't bought because they had a higher price in their head. And, hopefully they got that from another buyer that maybe had, funding or was an SBA buyer and didn't have to put that much cash down, or so we're not going to be the buyer for everybody. So, but we are the buyer for a lot of people. We're probably acquiring 5 to 7 a month at this rate.
Wow.
Probably through year end. So, it's I don't like dancing around it, but I also can't give anybody a straight answer because there's no market formula. I mean, the price is what the market bears and is willing to pay for it. And it's interesting, a lot of the conversations I'm having now are people saying, well, I don't want to sell, my business is down, or, I'm up 100% March through April. And you just have to have these conversations of, all right, well, is that sustainable? The short-term bump, is it, how sustainable is it? Conversely, how long will you kind of be underwater a little bit on a growth rate? So it's just every deal is totally different. I mean, we look at a lot of factors, a lot of variables. We kind of have our own internal system that helps us formulate on, what we ascribe the value of the business to. Those are the broad general guidelines. I think, 90% of the Amazon FBA businesses are transacted all in that 2 to 4 range.
So Ken, why don't you maybe step us through when Thrasio is kind of looking at businesses and they're kind of checking out the due diligence, what is kind of the process you guys go through when you're looking to purchase a business regarding the due diligence?
Yeah. So once we sign letter of intent, it kicks over to our formal kind of due diligence period. And there's typically a series of calls. So there's, a supply chain call, a marketing call, a general business ops call with the owners, walking through in depth with our kind of key stakeholders internally. We ascribe a brand manager to that brand. They're typically on all those calls as well, learning about the brand and day-to-day operations and growth opportunities. And then it's recreating the financials. So, it is we are buying all the assets of a company. So all the assets that are producing the cash and the profits that we're paying for. And so there's obviously a financial due diligence in terms of reconciling the model that was presented to us when we signed the deal and recreating the P&L. So it's kind of getting access to Seller Central. We have built our own program to build a P&L very quickly once we have access to Seller Central, reconciling supplier invoices, and then kind of marketing costs outside of Amazon, and then regular G&A to run the business. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's really straightforward. Typically, once we sign letter of intent, the first turn of the asset purchase agreement is kind of within 3 weeks or so. And then, hopefully by day 30, we're signing, depending on seller's counsel and going back and forth on the assets purchase agreement, and signing on day 30, and then begin migrating the account over to us, within Amazon. And then once that's migrated, the payments released, and that's typically an all-in 45-day process.
Wow, 45 days, you could basically sell your business. That's pretty great. I mean, that's really cool because
we did one. Our record was 8 days.
8 days, no way. Dang, that's really crazy. Yeah. So people are probably thinking this, and I want to just ask. So there's other companies out there besides Thrasio that buy Amazon companies or brands. So what kind of separates you guys or, sets you apart from the different ones out there that also buy brands?
Yeah, I think the team we built, I mean, I would put our team up there with, leading, D2C brands at this point. I mean, we have over 200 people in the company, just people that are a lot smarter than myself, that have, run brands, our head of supply chain ran a $2 billion sourcing P&L for Maris, one of the largest global shippers. So I think the team that we've assembled and the optionality to create these brands is, second to none. So if people are, looking for that next step for their brand and their baby, I think, we're far and away the best at that. And our goal is to be the best Amazon operators across the board. So our recent fundraise, we have the money. We're confident in our ability to diligence the businesses quickly. We don't require the sellers to stay on. So in terms of migration, so that within 45 days, they pretty much can, don't even have to give any mind share to the business. We don't require them to stay on for 15, 20 hours of consulting, a month for 3 months or 6 months or whatever it may be that, I see pitched a lot. So yeah, I just think, if we're, we look at ourselves as Mary Poppins, right? I mean, if you're looking for someone to look over your baby, right? And I just think we're continuing to grow. I mean, we just hired a head of retail, like physical retail, that has a lot of experience getting products into, brick and mortar. We're just, we think we're building the best run organization.
Yeah, so which you kind of answered my next question, which was regarding Thrasio's company goals, but you kind of covered that. But I want to ask, what is the goal on how many brands are you looking to purchase this year? I mean, obviously that'll fluctuate, but what is the goal of trying to acquire more brands this year for 2020?
Yeah, I mean, it really ranges to kind of what the opportunity set is. I would say anywhere from another. See, we're in April, probably another 30, I don't even know, 30 to 50 brands, maybe.
Wow. Yeah.
Probably more than that.
That's quite a few.
Yeah,
That's quite a few.
it's tough to forecast. We don't really. You just never know. I mean, I could get a call tomorrow, for a brand that's doing 30 million in revenue and 7 million of EBITDA, and they want to sell. So it's hard to really forecast like the number of deals, right? Because there's the deal sizes range. So we look at anything from $1 million in revenue to like up to 40, 50 million in revenue. So it's more kind of like how much capital do we have to deploy and what's our kind of speed of deploying that.
Yeah. So have you guys either talked to or purchased from, without naming names, any sort of big influencers, Amazon influencers out there?
Yeah. Yep.
So it's not always just a small guy. You've talked to some pretty big brands then. I mean, you said, some 50 million ones.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, we've acquired 2 like very sizable brands within the past 6 months.
Wow.
Looking at some more right now, but we also, we think when you look at the pyramid of sellers, right? There's 30,000 doing over $1 million in revenue, but when you really break that down, the majority of them are in that kind of 1 to 5 million range.
Yeah.
Of that 30,000 pyramid. So, we're going to continue and those are where you find great growth opportunities. The businesses that are doing 25, 30 million in revenue, they have teams, they are efficient, the more efficient, right? They have scaled up to that because they have business acumen and success, right? So, not to say that the other sellers don't, but it's just, they've thought through, hey, I'm going to build a business, I'm going to take it here. They've invested ahead of time. They have all the SOPs, maybe they have their own warehouse, like all this stuff already in place. So there's just different conversations because maybe, we can't 2-3x that, but I'm very confident in our abilities to do that in the 1 to 5 million range.
Yeah.
So I think we're, play up and down the spectrum, which is fun for me. I mean, that's what I love, talking to the sellers and hearing the stories and, it's just great. It's the best part of my job.
That's awesome. So from all these companies that you guys have purchased, what's probably the number one tip you could give somebody who's looking to sell their business?
Yeah, I would say, my biggest is there's no perfect time to sell. I get asked that a lot. So they're like, hey, can you take a look at my business? I think I'm going to grow it 50% and then sell it. I always say it's like getting married or deciding to have children. You're not going to wake up and be like, now's the perfect time. It's just feel, and you got to do, what you think is best. And I caution people. I mean, the biggest thing I see is that they've launched a product or 2 that have really gotten traction, and they've diversified quickly, launched a lot of new products, but they've started to neglect those top hero products. And so I always tell people to ride your winners, because that at the end of the day, that's what's going to, carry your entire brand is those, top 2, 3, 4 products, and really invest a lot of time and capital into building those up. And then, just knowing where you're at and like knowing how big those products can get. And that's what I think a lot of people don't spend enough time on, is they can just look at the growth rate and they're like, oh, this is going to continue. But at some point there's a natural ceiling to every product, right? On Amazon, kind of where you're at and what your competition is. So you spend a lot of time forecasting and figuring out how big the business can actually get. And don't wait until it hits there. You're bumping up against that ceiling to sell. You want to leave some growth on the table and some optionality for the new buyer. And a lot of times you see it hit the ceiling and it starts to roll, and then you're selling from a point of weakness versus strength, which obviously will impact your multiple and your cash out value.
Absolutely. Yeah. So why don't you also tell everybody, Ken, a little bit about your background, touch a little bit on Wall Street, and you were doing some wholesale. Why don't you go a little bit into that? Start with the Wall Street.
Yeah. So, out of college, I started and I did a 12 or 13 years in investment management on Wall Street. So I was a stock analyst and portfolio manager, managing, it's pretty similar. I mean, I was managing a portfolio of stocks, and I specialized in small cap technology stocks. growth stock. So it was really fun. I mean, it was great, but it was stressful. You didn't really have control in the outcome. It was more so about managing risk and kind of learn. But it was great. I mean, you got to learn tons of new business models, industries, technologies, profit pools. You study a lot of that and try and pick the winners, right? So I kind of got burned down on that. And to be honest, I mean, I was like a part of like 2 or 3 funds that were shut down, and and so stuff that people, a lot of like, I have like PTSD right now for a lot of people. I've been there. One of them happened right during the 2008, 2009 downturn, which was the worst absolute time to be in finance trying to find a job. And so I just, wanted to, looking at all these cool growth tech companies, I was like, I want to try my hand in a startup or just be more tied to the growth and have more of an impact on the outcome of the business. That was kind of my number one criteria when I was looking. And then I got connected with an entrepreneur in Boston who had a bunch of businesses, one of which was a $15 million a year Amazon business, and it was wholesale. So I have a mutual friend, and he was looking for someone to come run that because he was spending time elsewhere. And it was great because it was such a natural fit for my skill set, because we had a team of 5 or 6 buyers. We had relationships with 250 name brands, and we had proprietary tools in house, and it would allow us to find gaps in inventory and everything. And I would kind of basically allocate capital to the highest returning opportunities, basically what I was doing before. So did that for 2 years, and then started to look around, and I got connected with Carlos Cashman in Boston, one of the co-founders of Thrasio, and they had just made two acquisitions, and we're on the cusp of raising seed capital. And I loved the idea. I had exposure to Amazon. I knew the power in Amazon, and they kind of asked me to come on and run the front end of acquisitions and talking to sellers. And so it's just a perfect fit for my background up until that point. So I've loved every minute. It doesn't feel like work, which is great.
That's great. That's a great story. And I mean, like I said, I've known Ken for about a year, and he's always fun to hang out with, super smart, and really could bounce all kinds of questions off of him. And so, Ken, why don't you let everybody know how they get a hold of you? How can they contact you if they're interested in, maybe selling their business or finding out if it's available to sell, or what they should do maybe to get it ready to sell?
Yeah. So my email is pretty simple. It's Ken, Ken, at thras.io, thras.io. On Facebook, LinkedIn, you just, send me a request. I'm happy to chat through any channel, or you can just hit our website. There's a landing page form fill. It comes to our team. Happy to respond that way as well.
That's perfect. Yeah. And I'll make sure to put your email in the description. So anybody who's not sure, look in the description, or if you're listening on our podcast, again, it's Ken, Ken, at Thrasio, thras.io. Ken, thanks again. I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and for more information, please visit feedbackwhiz.com.